while we wait to get started, oh, we're good to go? Okay, so we're ready to get started. Good evening and welcome to the Monday, October 11, 2021, 6 p.m. regular meeting of the Bell Garden City Council. The meeting will now come to order. Pursuant to Assembly Bill 361, please be advised that members of the Bell Garden City Council may participate in today's meeting telephonically. Members of the public may view and listen to the meeting live online through the city's website as noted on the agenda. If any city council members should have a conflict of interest virtually, please leave the room by turning off video and muting yourself. You may still keep listening to the meeting. City Clerk, would you please call the roll of the City Council?
Yes, Mayor. Councilmember Chavez?
Present.
Cortez?
Present.
Flores?
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Pulido? Mayor Barcena?
Present. Thank you. City Attorney, will you please give the closed session reports for the City Council and Successor Agency?
Thank you, Mayor. The record should reflect that the City Council and Successor Agency recessed into closed session, all members being present with the exception of Councilwoman Agency Member Maria Pulido, to discuss 2 items under the Successor Agency closed session agenda and 4 items under the City Council closed session agenda. With respect to the Successor Agency, both items were discussed in closed session. Feedback was provided, but no final action was taken. With respect to items 1 and 2 under the City Council closed session agenda, the City Council received a briefing from its designated negotiators. Feedback was provided, but no final action was taken. With respect to the 3rd and 4th items, the City Council did not discuss these items in closed session. As such, there is nothing further to report at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, City Attorney. And now we're moving on to our presentations. I am going to change the order here. I'm going to be doing the Indigenous Peoples Day proclamation at the end. So we'll get started with National Code Enforcement Appreciation Week proclamation. I'm sorry, someone just brought to my attention that we haven't done the Pledge of Allegiance. So we are going to go ahead and do that now. We're going to do the invocation and pledge. And I will go ahead and do the pledge. Councilmember Cortez, can you help me with the invocation? All right, so everyone please stand for the invocation. It's God before country.
Lord, we are meeting today to conduct matters of business. Guard our hearts and our minds in the spirit of fairness, right thought, and speech. Impart your supreme wisdom upon our activities so that our affairs may reach a successful conclusion. Thank you for being our source of guidance today. Amen.
Everyone please face the flag. Put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Thank you. Okay, and we're back to the presentations now. We are going to be doing a proclamation for National Code Enforcement Appreciation Week. So I will go ahead and show you guys a beautiful proclamation that was prepared by our staff here. And I'm going to go ahead and read it. A proclamation in honor of the Code Enforcement Officer Appreciation Week. Whereas the state of California has proclaimed the 2nd week of October as Code Enforcement Appreciation Week, and whereas code enforcement officers provide for the safety, health, and welfare of citizens in Bell Gardens through the enforcement of local, state, and federal laws and ordinances dealing with various issues of building, zoning, housing, animal control, environmental, health, and life safety, and whereas code enforcement officers have challenging and demanding roles and often do not receive recognition for the job they do in improving the quality of life for residents and businesses of local communities. And whereas the role of many code enforcement officers has expanded in recent years with jurisdictions increasingly relying on the expertise and training of code enforcement officers in their communities, and whereas code enforcement officers are dedicated, highly qualified, and trained professionals who share the goals of preventing neighborhood deterioration, enhancing communities, ensuring safety, and preserving property values through the knowledge, training, and application of housing, zoning, and nuisance laws. And whereas code enforcement officers offer a highly visible role in the city and regularly interact with the public and local, regional, state, and federal officials in their capacity as code enforcement officers. And whereas the City of Bell Gardens wants to recognize and honor the code enforcement officers that serve our community and acknowledge their role in improving quality of life within our community. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Marco Barcena, Mayor of the City of Bell Gardens, with the City Council, do hereby proclaim the second week of October 2021 and annually thereafter as Code Enforcement Officer Appreciation Week in the City of Bell Gardens, and encourage residents to join in recognizing and expressing their appreciation for the dedication and service by the individuals who serve as our code enforcement officers. Proclaim this 11th day of October 2021. So I do believe we have some staff here. I want to acknowledge them. Code enforcement from our community development department. If you would like to maybe come up here and I can hand this over to you so you can take it over to your department. And we'll also be taking a quick picture. So if the council can do me a favor and meet over by where Hylas is so we can take the picture. Thank you. Great. Thanks again to our code enforcement for everything that they do. And now we are going to be moving on to our next proclamation, which is the National Community Planning Month proclamation. Before we get that, we do have someone from our code enforcement department that would like to say a few words, and of course, we would love to hear what they have to say. Go ahead, please.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of our city council, city manager, and our administrative staff. On behalf of our department, I'd like to thank every one of you for your support. Without your support, we just can't function, not only with equipment, but just support in general. It's a very difficult task that we do. We try to keep everyone happy, but yet try to assure that the city is maintained at a certain standard and level that brings comfort to our residents. support with our director, Mr. Romo, uh, who just goes out of his way for anything we need uh, and support in difficult cases. But again, I want to thank all of you for our support. Uh, Police department that we work very closely with our chief, uh, we call him to the bear. We work very closely together, and I think that makes a very good team. And again, I think overall we're just there to serve the community and ensure a safe environment for the residents. Thank you.
Thank you, George, for those words. Do I have any comments from my colleagues?
I just wanted to make a quick comment.
Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Councilmember Cortez has something to say.
I want to thank you for sharing some words. We usually hand out these proclamations, and we don't very often get to hear from our staff directly. But you know, next to PD, you're the number one public enemy as well when it comes to our community because you're out there, you're enforcing, and there are very tough conversations that need to be had sometimes. But I mean, I'm offering my support always, but I just want to thank you for a tremendous job done and just keeping our city up to code and going out there and having those tough conversations and not giving up because you've been with us. Both of you, all of you have been with us so many years. And I know I wouldn't have the stomach to do that year after year and just have people, attack me or be mad at me every single time. And I just want the public to know that these employees are amazing individuals who are out there just doing their job. And every time they come to your house, they're following our laws or um, our codes here in the city. So they're doing their job. So treat them with dignity, with respect, and just thank you so much for the work that you do.
Councilmember Cortez, and I do believe I have a comment
Yes,
from
I don't think I could say much after I think she
Councilmember
covered
Flores.
everything, but I just want to say thank you so much for what you guys do. What, you guys are the family of Bell Gardens. I know you guys have seen many administrations come before you, and we're just one of the many that you have all seen. You guys are in the back making sure that this bus is actually really rolling. And sometimes I feel that people forget that you guys are the backbone of the city. So thank you so much for what you guys do, for caring. I know that sometimes you try to help people so much, and sometimes there's just nothing that you guys can do. And I know that. And I hear, although there's always going to be some sort of bad report from some. There's also really good report, and just know that the good ones make a lot less noise, and that's all it is. But thank you so much for what you guys do. You guys are deeply appreciated, and guys, you've been a blessing to our city, and I'm so grateful that you're here. So don't go anywhere and keep treating them good so that they stay here with us. Thank you.
Thank you. I like the fact that everyone's clapping after we speak. I think we need to keep that up. So thank you. And now I want to check in with Councilmember Chavez, who also has some words.
Briefly, I do want to echo the words that both of my colleagues just mentioned about code enforcement. Really appreciate all the work that you both do, that the whole team does. Small and mighty, but you guys are always out there. And I mean, I've had a couple fair share of concerns, and immediately they've been taken care of. So I really appreciate it. I appreciate the leadership with Director Gus Romo, George. Really appreciate all the service that you do. And again, keep it up. Keep it up. So look forward to National Code Enforcement Appreciation Week next year as well. So again, thank you for all the work and keep it up.
Thank you, council member. And I do have a few comments. I have a flaw because I used to actually be in the community development department where code enforcement sort of meets up. That's sort of like their base where they show up every day. And I have very, very good memories of staff there. I was there for a whole year because in my office where I was located at Ford Park, there was a huge leak for a while, and it got to the point that they had to relocate a couple of our staff. So I have really, really great memories of working with them on different projects, but at the same time, we were able to share that space. I remember I had never worked out of a cubicle before, and there were cubicles there, so we would all kind of like just like stand up, and then you'll see George over there, and then you see some other staff kind of saying hi. So it was a great environment. And now looking at it from a different perspective, when I went out there and I campaigned and I talked to all the residents in Bell Gardens, they all had positive things to say about our code enforcement. And I think that's something great to be said about them because who likes to have a code enforcement go to their front door and tell them, oh, you got to fix this and that? And nobody likes that, right? But somehow they managed to do it in a way where residents are still able to say a bunch of positive things about them. So I want to commend our code enforcement for having that tact with our community, that it's a tough job, but they still figure out how to get people to feel good about improving their living conditions. So thank you again. And I do get confused a little bit sometimes because to me, you guys are all part of one big team, community development and planning department. So this is a great segue to go into another proclamation that we have for our National Community Planning Month. And we do have some planning staff here today, which is great. So I'll go ahead and read that. A proclamation in honor of Community Planning Month. Whereas change is constant and affects all cities, towns, suburbs, counties, townships, rural areas, and other places. And whereas community planning and plans can help manage this change in a way that provides better choices for how people work and live. And whereas community planning provides an opportunity for all residents to be meaningfully involved in making choices that determine the future of their community. And whereas the full benefits of planning requires public officials and citizens who understand, support, and demand excellence in planning and plan implementations. And whereas the month of October is designated as National Community Planning Month throughout the United States of America and its territories, and whereas American Planning Association endorses National Community Planning Month as an opportunity to highlight how planning is essential to recovery and how planners can lead communities to equitable, resilient, and long-lasting recovery. And whereas the celebration of National Community Planning Month gives us the opportunity to publicly recognize the participation and dedication of the members of planning commissions and other citizen planners who have contributed their time and expertise to the improvement of the city of Bell Gardens. And whereas we recognize that many valuable contributions made by professional community and regional planners of the city of Bell Gardens, of the County of Los Angeles, and, and extend our heartfelt thanks for the continued commitment to public service by these professionals. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Marco Barcena, Mayor of the City of Bell Gardens, with the City Council, do hereby proclaim the month of October 2021 and annually thereafter as Community Planning Month in the City of Bell Gardens in conjunction with the celebration of National Community Planning Month. Proclaimed this 11th day of October 2021. And before we go and take a picture, I want to see if there's anyone that would like to say some words. And we do have someone coming up.
Good evening, Mayor Barcelona, members of the City Council, Mr. City Manager, members of the staff present tonight. On behalf of Adrian Flores, who is our assistant planner, and Erica Gutierrez, our plan secretary, and myself, I would like to thank the City Council for this recognition tonight with the presentation of this proclamation and the work that we do in the planning division. We truly appreciate it. Thank you for your support and for your guidance in all that we do every day. Thank you.
Thank you. And do I have any comments from my colleagues?
I should have put it all together.
Again, I feel, the reason why we probably don't have that many comments is because we feel like you guys are one whole team. So we see you under the same umbrella, but I want to thank you and staff that has been there for such a long time doing an excellent job. And I hope that we continue to see a lot of improvements. I know that we will continue to see a lot of improvements in our community thanks to the work that you do and also the great leadership that you have now with Gus. and all of the other supervisors inside the department. So thanks again for all the work that you do. And now we're gonna go ahead and take a quick picture, all right? Okay, so now we're gonna go ahead and move forward to our People's Day proclamation. And I had a request from one of our council members, Mr. Chavez, Council Member Chavez. He wants to read the proclamation, and I think that will be a great thing to hear. After the proclamation, I do have a few remarks, so I'm gonna go ahead and hand it over to our council member here. You can go to the station, yeah.
City of El Norte's proclamation in honor of Indigenous Peoples Day. Whereas in 1977, the idea of Indigenous Peoples Day was first proposed by a delegation of Native nations to the United Nations sponsored International Conference on Discrimination against Indigenous Populations in the Americas, and whereas the United States endorsed the United Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People on December 19, 2020, and whereas the City of Ladon recognizes and deeply values the vast contributions made by Indigenous peoples to our community that has substantially shaped the character of our city and our region, and whereas Indigenous Peoples Day shall be used to reflect upon the ongoing struggles of Indigenous peoples in our country and to celebrate and honor their heritage, resiliency, and diverse culture. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Mayor Mark Barcelona, and City Council of El Garden, do hereby proclaim October 11, 2021 as Indigenous Peoples Day and encourage all of you to join in celebrating and learning about the contributions and recognize the different cultures of the Indigenous peoples in our country, in our state, and in our great city. Proclaim this 11th day of October 2021.
Thank you, Councilmember Jorge Chavez, for reading the proclamation here. I'm gonna go ahead and show it. This is the proclamation in honor of our indigenous people. And I prepared something for this proclamation. I wanted to select someone from our community that has indigenous roots, someone that can receive this proclamation on behalf of the city of Bell Gardens and the entire council. So I found someone in the community that I've known for many years. His name is Leonidas Morales. Leonidas Morales is part of a big family that lived and grew up here in Bell Gardens. He's actually from Mexico, but he came over here, he immigrated, and most of his family has been involved in recreation and community services. They've been recreation leaders. They have been police explorers. I think one of them even competed in Miss Bell Gardens at one point. and they continue to serve our community. They sell fruit in the city. They have those, they're street vendors. They have those carts that are throughout the city here in Bell Gardens. And I just feel like they contributed a lot to our community. So I wanted to take this opportunity to make it special for them, allow them to say a few words, to share a few words with us in regards to their roots, their heritage. And I went ahead and prepared a video. So Hylis, can you please help me play that? And before you start, I wanna mention that, if you don't mind. So just for context, Don Leo, who is here in this video, he's of Aztec descent, and he speaks Nahuatl, which is one of the dialects from Mexico. And he did us the honor of telling us a few words in his language. So we have captions here in Spanish and English so that you guys can follow along. But go ahead, Hylis.
Kekate Nogniwa. Nelmo toca Leonides Morales, Juan León Tlaca, Tompa Puebla, México. Asnica Nica en Bell Gardens, California. 40 Shiwil Nican Kate, Nosoa Guanopilgua. Tlazocamate, Guancuali Kate Nica. Ashnintonal, Día de la Raza, Kinamike no chi no techilque europeos, amo cualiuchique de Nogniwa indígenas de Nosti de Nintlali. Ashnintonal, Catesequitogniwa, Techpalewia, para cualitiesque, para Matkilcahuaca, nochi no amo cualiotechchique. Nosti Togniwa, indígenas, pía, tu cultura, tradiciones, dialectos, idiomas, magmatica nosti, non Nicatcate y Panintlali, Tlazocamati. Tlazocamati Belgardes, amo Quilcagua, nosti Togniwa, indígenas de Nintlali, Tlazocamati.
So thank you to the Morales family for being part of our community for so many years and for bringing some of the roots and the culture of indigenous people. And again, thank you, Jorge Chavez, for reading the proclamation. And we're gonna go ahead and unless there are any comments from the
Yes,
council.
I just wanted to say congratulations, Mayor Barcena. That was an absolutely beautiful and touching video. And I don't know how you came across as resident, but this is amazing. And I'm glad that we're able to share, you know, the past so that we know that we're trying to restore what happened once. And it's beautiful that we have our residents here speaking today. So thank you for being able to put that together.
Thank you for your comment.
Mayor,
Please.
este mensaje es para la familia Morales. Muchísimas gracias por ese video tan hermoso al alcalde Marco Bárcena por traernos esta hermosura de poder oír su dialecto y escuchar sus palabras. So, muchísimas gracias. Es importante reconocer a nuestra gente indígena y también reconocer el pasado de la ciudad donde vivimos y del área donde vivimos. So, gracias, alcalde Bárcena, por traer eso. And just briefly in English, I just want to thank the Morales family for sharing this, and also Mayor Bárcena for bringing this amazing treat to us to be able to hear in your native tongue these amazing words or these, your beautiful language. And it's important for us to acknowledge and recognize our Indigenous community. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you so much. Okay. All right, we're gonna go ahead and move on to public participation on agenda items only. We will now move to the first item on the agenda. Public participation is now open for items listed on the agenda. City Clerk, are there any speakers?
Mayor Rosanna, we have 15 written comments that have been submitted. We will go ahead and just move to the verbal comments first. So anyone wishing to speak will be able to speak in just a few seconds, okay? So good evening. The members of the public will now have an opportunity to speak on the items listed on the City Council meeting agenda. Please state your name for the record. Before addressing your comments to the mayor and council members, each speaker and email reading is limited to 3 minutes. Email comments will be read out loud after all speakers have been heard. Anyone wishing to make comments may do so at this time by pressing *9. When instructed, press *6 to unmute yourself. Individuals joining us through the Zoom app may request to make comments by using the raise hand feature on Zoom. Liz, do we have any speakers? Mayor, would you like us to give them a few more minutes or seconds?
We can move forward to the written comments. I think if they come back, we can revert back to the verbal comments.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and start with the English comments. So the first comment is gonna be from Veronica Ascension. As a city of Bell, as a citizen of the city of Bell Gardens, I speak to support from our city representatives in order to implement rent control in the city of Bell Gardens, which will only allow a maximum of 1 to 3% rent increase per year. We need rent control in order to be able to afford rent, utilities, food, and medical expenses without digging ourselves deeper into debt just to survive. This would also allow for better mental health as well, as this would help relieve the stress and anxiety brought on by our current stressful means of living. I implore you to please help the citizens in the city of Bell Gardens whom are barely making ends meet. Next comment from Rosemary Rodriguez. Subject is rent. It says, I would like not to go up. So no rent increase. Next one is from Alexis Lopez. I would like to see it implemented because during the pandemic, our landlord refused COVID-19 aid money to help with payments. Multiple tenants applied, but they informed us that we're going to participate because they only want money orders or cash. Gladly raised the rent during the same time my neighbors weren't able to pay rent. Higher rent, zero maintenance unless something falls apart, zero pest control with multiple roach infestations in the apartments. Concerned BG tenant. Next, from Joanna Venegas. I would like to submit a public comment about tenant protection. I stand with the Union de Vecinas demanding a rent control of 1 to 3% maximum, protections from eviction, and more tenants' rights because it is very hard to live in the current situation we are living. Everything is going up and it's very hard to pay rent and bills. I truly believe this is very important for us residents to Bell Gardens to have rent control and not allow owners to take advantage. Please approve this petition. Next one is from Mirna Cornejo. Good afternoon. I'm emailing you to express my support for a rent control policy in our city. My family is a renter family in Bell Gardens, and I like many families in the city are hardworking people who do the best we can. We're in the circumstances we face. In the past 5 years, I have witnessed my parents abide by the rent increase for our home, yet feel terrified every time the house needs some work done, whether it's the plumbing or something as simple as paint, because they are scared our landlords will increase the rent even more the next time. So they rather pay out of their own pockets. Families should not have to live with this. I am asking the city to support and actually help us with passing rent control efforts for the city and helping the families who keep city councils in office. Next speaker, Carolyn Grant. I'm sending this email because I believe that the city needs to help support tenants about rent control. I believe that they should only do it every 3 to 5 years. Not every year, more of us are low income and kind of forward the increase that the owners want to do every year. I've been a resident of Bell Gardens for the last 17 years and just recently have they started raising our rent every year and it's not fair. The next one is from Danny Rivera. Hello, my name is Danny Rivera, and I am a Bell Gardens resident for more than 15 years. I am writing about rent control. Over the years, my rent has increased more than 8 times. Increase in rent is making Bell Gardens one of the worst cities to rent a home. We need some rent control to protect Bell Gardens residents. Most of the homeowners in Bell Gardens don't live in the city. That is not fair for them to just increase the rent every they want to. Please help the city residents. This would conclude the comments for English. We'll go ahead and now move on to the Spanish comments. Mayor Sana, would you like to read those?
We actually do have translations of the comments now. Do you mind reading them for me? Yeah, since you wrote them, it'll be easier. So we're gonna be reading them. I believe we're gonna read them here in English while the translator reads them in Spanish in the other channel, correct?
Okay, let me go ahead and just make sure she is okay. So she'll be translating them in.
She'll read in Spanish and
And we'll read them in English.
Councilman will read it.
Okay, okay. Yeah, so the interpreter can read them directly from the email, and then I interpreted them to English. Okay. Okay, this one is from Araceli Hernandez. We do want Purple Gardens to have rent control because the landowner where I live has raised my rent for up to 2 times a year. And for those of us that make minimum wage, it is barely enough. Hi, my name is Saida Bedoya. I would like a rent control that is just and necessary for the city of Bell Gardens. We have been fighting so that our families have a stable home that is worthy and we meet our end of paying the rent month by month. The next one is from Guadalupe Moreno. Good evening. My name is Maria Guadalupe Moreno. I would like for you to pass rent control because every year they raise my rent $100, and the truth is that what we earn is only for the rent. I have been living here for 14 years, and I would not like to move states due to elevated rents. I hope this is taken into account. I love the safety of the police officers and the council members. My name is Maria Esparza. Oh, the next one is Maria Esparza. I would like to have rent control because with the crisis that we have going on, it's very hard to pay it. I have been without a job twice and I am a single mom, therefore it is hard for me to pay it. Sometimes the landowner doesn't want to wait for the rent, and if he does, he charges an additional $50. A year ago, he increased the rent by $300. For this reason, I would like for us to have rent control. The next one is from Monica Kakimoto. Hi, I am Monica from La Unión de Vecinas. I am against the heightened rents that are out of control. It is not fair that with the crisis we are living, we need support and protection because they don't think of us. The next one is from Yanira Cisneros. I demand, along with the Unión de Vecinas, protections for renters in Bell Gardens. The next one is from Bessie Blanco. Good evening. Through the current email, I would like protection for renters in Bell Gardens with regards to rent. In the last years, we have suffered a discriminatory raise in the rent, a raise that is not justified and that has affected us a lot. Because every single time it is harder to pay it. In my case, I have more than 14 years living in a house that I rent, and up to today, they have never changed the carpet. It is an injustice that needs to end. We hope to count with your help and your protection because these people want to evict us at any given chance. Thank you so much for taking into account this email. Sincerely, Rosa M. Castro. Hi, my name is Ramona Curiel. I have lived in Bell Gardens with my four sons or daughters for the last 25 years, and I demand, along with the Unión de Vecinas, a rent control that only allows a maximum of 1 to 3% once a year, and also protections against evictions and threats and just threats for the renters of Bell Gardens. In the most brief words, the landowner has raised my rent more than 100% due to with a contract of 3 months that was turned in one day before the 1st of July of 2021. My rent is 1,200. In July and June of 2021, sorry. On June 2021 was the day and month that I received the contract so that I could pay the next 3 months, which was a total amount of 2,500. July, August, and September. And for me to leave at the end of the month, the worst of the case, or the worst part of the case, was that I have never missed a rent, nor have I given a late payment. Even though we're in a pandemic and with all the stress of COVID, and on top of that, the harassment and the pressure of the landowner, even though he is a family member, he's still asking me to leave the house if I don't pay what he's demanding. When I rented the house, it didn't have a kitchen and there was never any plumbing fixtures. They never fixed the electricity, the paint, or the flooring. And I have had to make all those changes and cover the cost myself. I didn't want to sign the contract. And on this month, October of 2021, the owner has not collected the rent. I am one more renter uniting my voice with all the other renters in the city of Bell Gardens to defend our rights and demand what's fair. Sincerely, Ramona Curiel. And that concludes our Spanish.
Thank you, Councilmember Cortez. I do believe there's one comment that wasn't read. It's a very short one. It's from Yanira Cisneros, and it says she demands, together with the Unión de Vecinas, more protections for tenants in Bell Gardens, and that is all. So thanks again for that, for helping us translate that, Councilmember Cortez. We really appreciate your skills when it comes to the Spanish language. And now let us get back on the agenda so that we can keep this meeting going. We are going to now, there's no objection by the City Council. I will close public participation, and we have the City Manager who will provide us with a City Manager report.
Thank you, Mayor Barcena. This time of year, there are a lot of events coming up, lots of things going on, especially as we're still in the midst of the COVID pandemic. So I just want to talk about a few items real quick to make everybody aware. First, I would just want to thanks to staff and the volunteers, vendors, commissioners, council members that came out on Saturday for the neighborhood cleanup. Specifically, our Public Works Director, Grisel, just want to say thank you to her for all the effort there. Just to acknowledge today was the kickoff event for the Latino Equality Alliance. For the opening of their pop-up resource center they'll have on the second and fourth Thursdays at Veterans Park. We have continued COVID testing Monday through Friday from 11 to 5 at Veterans Park, so you can just come walk up, no appointment necessary, no insurance required. Also, booster shots are available for eligible groups that received the first two Pfizer shots. There are a lot of events coming up. I'll just mention a few that are happening between now and the next council meeting. On Friday, October 22nd, there's a movie Under the Stars at Veterans Park. It's Beetlejuice, so it's apropos for the autumn Halloween season. Also want to mention on Saturday, October 23rd, from 2 to 5 at Marlowe Park. This is a second really good size event that we've had over at Marlowe Park and trying to revitalize that park. We'll have a mural event. So from 2 to 5 residents can come out and we'll have paper, artists, art supplies for people to help design a mural for Marlowe Park. There was a request for self-defense courses. There'll be information out on that, but they'll be occurring in November, December, January, and February. Also really exciting, I think one of the landmark events that we've been all waiting for, before the next council meeting at 4 p.m. on October 25th, we'll have an aquatic center groundbreaking over at the aquatic center, obviously. So really excited about that and the ramping up of the tear down and then construction of the new aquatic center. And also just the last item I want to mention, since we acknowledged Code Enforcement Appreciation Month, there were a couple questions on here. On item number 12, we've got a state grant funded purchase of radios. And I just want to note 3 of those 4 portable radios are actually going to Code Enforcement. So those are radios that they used to have, but when we switched over to a new radio system, due to the cost of these radios, we weren't able to really afford additional radios for Code Enforcement. And so this grant's allowing us to do that. Just thank you for your time, Mayor.
Thank you, City Manager, for your report. We will now move to the consent calendar. Does any member of the City Council wish to pull an item for separate discussion?
I'd like to pull item number 6 and 10.
6 and 10, okay. So may I have a motion to approve the rest of the items?
I'll go ahead and motion to approve the items with the exception of items 6 and 10.
I'll second.
It's a second by Councilmember Cortez. So I'm going to take it to a roll call. Councilmember Chavez?
Yes.
Thank you. Councilmember Cortez?
Yes.
Thank you. Councilmember Flores?
Yes.
Thank you. And yes for myself. So motion carries and items 1 through 5, 7 through 9 are approved, and 11 through 12 are approved as well. So starting with item number 6, is there anything specific, Councilmember Flores?
Yes, for item number 6, Crystal, that would be you, correct? So, could you please go ahead and give us a rundown of what exactly was accepted for the construction? I know what it is, but for the community to know, because I know that there was a lot of problems during this intersection for the last couple of years. So this is a good accomplishment. This is a phenomenal accomplishment for our community. But can you tell us a little bit about what it is and how long it took?
Sure. Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. The evening before you is for acceptance of construction that was completed for the installation or construction of a new traffic signal at Garfield Avenue and Muller Street. This project. Thank you. Technical difficulties. This project started in April 2020 last year, and the work included a new traffic signal, new poles, signal lights, highway safety lights, concrete repairs, and curb ramps. And the work was bid out and awarded to Elecnor Belco Electric, and it was completed on April 27th of this year. And that signal has been up and running ever since. We did have about 11 change orders for different unforeseen events or activities, ranging from additional temporary power due to coordinating with Edison for, just extra wiring and other items that were needed, signal controller cabinet testing, and some other items relating to paving and striping. So the work was finally completed for a total amount of $378,110. And this resulted in a savings of about $51,000 due to the total estimated project amount being $425,000. So that savings in the Prop C funding will be going back into the budget, so it can be reprogrammed for other Prop C related projects.
Thank you so much, Crystal.
You're welcome. I did want to share the only pending item is the illuminated street name signs, the ones that actually have the Garfield street name sign will be replaced in the coming weeks. They are not currently installed correctly per the city spec. So the new ones will be coming up in the weeks ahead. So that's the only pending item still associated with this project, as was noted in the report.
Thank you.
With that, yeah, staff would just be requesting council accept the project as complete, and staff will file the notice of completion.
Thank you so much, Crystal. I pulled this item because there was prior to your arrival, there was actually a man who died at this intersection. And the family, obviously was extremely saddened by the loss of the family member. And this is not just, I want you guys to know, this is not just a regular item that I don't want it to just go by like that. This is something that's going to save people's lives. And this is not a expenditure. This is an investment in the life and the quality of life of our constituents. So thank you for performing this work. And with that, I'll go ahead to motion to approve this item.
And I'll go ahead and second that motion, but at first I would like to say a comment in regards to that intersection. I remember when I was campaigning, I went, and I live like 2 blocks away from there, so it's just right around the corner for me. But I went to that liquor store on that corner, and that was one of the biggest concerns. Not only that liquor store, but the one across the street. They really wanted to see a signal there, and I'm so happy that we're actually here now and that we have that signal. So I want to thank you and your staff. And I know that this has been going on since probably before you got here to the City of Bell Gardens, but I'm happy that it's there now. I've seen another signal over on Eastern by El Pescador that recently got installed. So I think little by little we're getting there, and I would like to request some information on how to get a crosswalk on Garfield, um, south from Quinn Street. I'm sorry, not on Garfield, on Eastern. on east along Eastern south from Queen Street, because I noticed that from Queen all the way down to where Garfield merges with Eastern, there aren't any crosswalks. So people have no way from getting they have no way to get from one side to the other unless they're at a signal intersection. So just a small project that I want to see if we can look into it. So Mike, I don't know if that's something that we can put on our next agenda. And again, thank you for all the work. I appreciate it. So having said that, we have a motion by Councilmember Flores, a second by me, and we'll take it to a roll call to approve this item. Councilmember Chavez?
Yes.
Thank you. Councilmember Cortez?
Yes.
Thank you. Councilmember Flores?
Yes.
Thank you. And yes for myself. So motion carries. And I believe Councilmember Flores also asked for item number 10.
Yes, for the approval of the resolution for the Fort Park application for the restroom, could you give us a rundown of that, Roseanne, please?
Oh, that's also my item here, although we worked on it together. So I'd be happy to give the report. Good evening again, Mayor and members of the City Council. This is as stated, a request from the Parks and Recreation Community Services and Public Works Department to utilize Prop 68 funding through their per capita program to allocate the city's amount of $204,078 to be used towards the replacement of the restroom, a prefabricated building, a restroom building that can be installed at Ford Park on the far east end, adjacent to the adult school. So there's a playground there at the far corner of the park, and then a restroom building that's existing that's in very worn, deteriorated condition. So that's what we are requesting, to use that funding. So it is a one-time allocation granted to the city. So with council's approval, if the resolution is approved this evening, we will continue with the process to submit the rest of the required, just the requirements for the grant, and then the city would be able to use the funding for that purpose. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. And again, I pull this with the purpose that our constituents have time and time again complained about the quality of the restrooms in our parks, and that it's not up to standard for our families. And so this is a very important, grant that we're applying for that would change not only the aesthetics, but the experience of the families who visit our parks, and just give us that boost that we really needed. So I just wanted to put that out there. And what is the do we have an estimation of what funds we can acquire through this grant?
So the current allocation is capped at our amount, $204,000, which is not enough to fund the project. So the balance of the funding, we will seek Measure A funding
Okay,
through the county to fund the remaining portion of it,
thank
to
you.
fully fund the project. And this is next to the playground. That's part of the
And the inside.
relocation of the yard tied to the aquatics project, which will be mentioned at next council meeting.
Gotcha. Well, thank you so much. So residents, you heard it here. We're getting new restrooms. And that's all. Thank you so much. With that, I'll go ahead and motion to approve item number 10.
I'll second that.
Okay, we'll take it to a vote. Councilmember Chavez?
Yes.
Councilmember Cortez?
Yes.
Flores?
Yes.
And yes for myself, so motion carries and item 10 is approved together with all the other consent items. And now we are moving on to discussion items 13 through 15. City Manager, will you please announce discussion item number 13?
Thank you, Mayor Barcena. This item's a carryover from a request from Councilmember Flores at the last council meeting regarding the Traffic Safety Commission. It'd also be open to any other commission appointments for those commissions that currently have vacancies and for which there's been advertisements.
Thank you. And I believe this one was brought up by Councilmember Flores from our previous meeting.
At this time, I don't have the person appropriate for this commission, so I'd like to go ahead and leave it blank right now until I find that position. Thank you for bringing it back.
All right, and just for my own information, we still have quorum in that committee, correct? We have about 4 still in it.
For the Traffic and Safety Commission, Mayor? Yes,
Yeah,
there are
okay,
4
we're good.
currently.
All right, thank you. And unless anyone else has Any other requests? We're gonna move on from this item.
Quick question, Mayor.
Yes.
This is more so a question to our staff. In regards to publicizing the vacancies that are available for the commissions, do we publicize them on social media? I know we've been publicizing the ones about the associate planner position with the community development, the jail supervisor, and those are like we're like asking for people to submit their resumes and like a formal job application. But in terms of posting like a flyer that shows all of our vacancies for commissions, is this something that we also publicize on social media?
Councilmember Chavez, I think the answer to that is no. I think we're pretty much posting at the city facilities. And then also, I think presumably there's some outreach also by council members, particularly if they have a vacancy. But I think, I'd say maybe if we do it on a request basis, if there's a position open, we'd be happy to post that on social media going forward.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you. City Manager, will you please announce discussion item number 14?
Yes, thanks again, Mayor Barcena. This item is an item really that comes out of the ever-evolving COVID-19 pandemic. Obviously, the way we're conducting the meeting currently today with no members of the public present and from a remote perspective was authorized through um, because of the COVID pandemic. And so as vaccinations increase and things of that nature, there are changes to state law. So there was an assembly bill that was passed that if we were to continue conducting meetings similar to the way that we're doing them now, would require reauthorization every 30 days and to make some findings. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Stephanie. It's not our normal Stephanie from our city attorney firm. This is Stephanie A. She'll give you some details, and what we're really looking for is direction from the council to continue holding meetings the way we're doing it now, but in accordance with AB 361, or if we want to go back to public meetings that are open to members of the public in a way that we've done previous to the COVID pandemic. So with that, I'll turn it over to Stephanie from our city attorney firm.
Thank you for that, City Manager. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council members. Item 14 before you this evening is a resolution that would allow the City Council, as just mentioned by our City Manager, to continue, as well as city boards and commissions, continue to host teleconference meetings under the modified rules of the Brown Act recently amended by AB 361. In March 2020, in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, Governor Newsom issued an executive order which allowed local governments meet remotely without adhering to the traditional teleconferencing rules under the Brown Act. This order was extended multiple times and expired on September 30th, 2021. On September 16th, in anticipation of the expiring executive order, Governor Newsom signed into law Assembly Bill number 361, which through January 1st, 2024, allows local agencies use teleconferencing methods to conduct meetings so long as the meeting is held during a declared state of emergency, when state or local officials have imposed or recommended measures to promote social distancing, or when the legislative body has determined that meeting in person would present imminent risks to the health or safety of attendees. Should a local agency elect to hold meetings under AB 361, they will need to abide by the amended Brown Act provisions, which include providing notice and posting agendas outlining the steps to remotely watch and participate in the meeting, providing remote members of the public access to the meeting and an opportunity to address the body directly, providing remote members of the public the opportunity to comment in real time, immediately suspend further action on items in the meeting in the event that there is any disruption in the ability of the meeting to be broadcasted to the members of the public, or in the ability for the remote members to provide public comment, avoid closing any timed public comment period until such time has lapsed, and confirm the circumstances of the state of emergency and need for teleconferencing meetings every 30 days after the initial adoption. Just to clarify that last requirement, should the council pass resolution number 2021-87, ongoing authorization every 30 days is required by a majority vote, which means this item will be coming back once a month, should it be passed. Again, as mentioned by our city manager, staff currently recommends that the city council either adopt the resolution and conduct all meetings of all public bodies virtually, subject to the Brown Act with its new amendments under AB 361, or take no action, which would mean the city council would revert to the provisions of the traditional Brown Act. This concludes my presentation.
Thank you for the presentation. And I'm going to open up a discussion with my colleagues if there are any comments in regards to this item.
Mayor,
Please.
I would like to offer my support for recommendation number one to go ahead and approve the resolution, only because we do have the winter months coming up, and as we know, and from last year, the winter months were some of the most scariest and heaviest when it came to the pandemic. We don't know how that's going to turn up this year. But just as a form of precaution for the safety of our staff here at City Hall that has been working every single day since the pandemic started, I would like to go with item number one, or with recommendation number one.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and Sorry about that. I was muted, but I'm going to go ahead and second that. However, I do want to open it up for comments if my colleagues have anything else to add.
Just for clarification purposes, so if we were to go with staff recommendation number one, does that mean that we would not open City Hall for public meetings?
Correct. It would continue, we would continue to hold meetings as we've been holding them since COVID.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion. And then, so if we were to pick number two, we would open City Hall for our meetings to be in public.
We would revert back to the rules that were in place under the Brown Act before the pandemic occurred. So that would mean that we would have to open up chambers and people would have the ability to come forward and provide public comment in person. And there would be some other things that we would need to do as well. But essentially, we would revert back to the Brown Act, the way that it was prior to COVID.
With the regulations also put in place in terms of online commenting and emails, no, that wouldn't count.
No, if we revert back to the way things were pre-COVID, all of that would go away. We would just conduct the meetings in person.
Yeah, so Councilmember Chavez, we have these liberties of having all this virtual comment and Zoom comment because of this bill or the previous bill. But if all that were to go away, then the only way for community comment would have to be in person. And it would go back to our rules that we have in place. Oh, they have to submit like a comment card and so on.
If only if we could get best of both worlds, in which we could have City Hall still open and people could comment in person and also still be able to comment virtually through phones or emails being sent in. Is that an option that could be presented?
You could do that. It's not required by law. You could always do that if you choose to. If you were to go back to the way things were pre-COVID, you could allow for people to call in and you could do the video, Zoom, and all of that, but it wouldn't be required under the law. But you could do that if you choose to.
I'd like to go with that recommendation in terms of having City Hall open, having the option for residents to come in, because it's not the same environment to tune into a city council meeting through a virtual forum, while I could also just go see it in person. So, I mean, it's just comes down to the options. I mean, I understand that watching online, it is convenient. And then also the option to just being able to watch it a later time. That's also another option that's presented through virtual streaming. But if we could move forward with simply opening City Hall, we already have it open for people can come in, request permitting or anything sort of that aligns of those businesses, right? I mean, we have City Hall open for other things. I would imagine that the only thing that would change now is that moving forward, we keep this sort of streamlined process that we have with city council meetings being streamed virtually for the folks that want to see it online, and then also for the folks that actually want to come in. And then I would ask that on behalf of staff, I mean, we've done it before. We have had some council meetings where we did enforce um, social distancing and we actually gave out hand sanitizer for the folks that were in here. We actually have had city council meetings done here in the past with this pandemic. So um, I understand that, the winter months are coming. So with that said, I mean, I would like to just give the option to, or make the recommendation to also open up City Hall while keeping these provisions on the table as well. So that'd be my motion. Hope that makes sense. Or
All right.
clarify it.
Thank you for your comment and your motion. Councilmember Flores, did you have any comments?
Um, I I'm a bit conflicted because I do believe that we should open up our chamber so that the community can join us. However, with For those who don't know and are watching us at home, we've had some issues in this particular chamber with what was it, like the air conditioning and our restrooms. There wasn't a lot of ventilation in here at some point. And it was kind of a hazard because we had a lot of people here, some people chanting. And when it's crowded like that and there's not enough social distancing and not enough air ventilation, it does pose a threat, not just to our staff who's here because they have to, but also to us and to the others who come with the idea that we are providing social distancing measures. So I would like to open it up, providing social distancing measures, which means not filling up this place to its full capacity. However, not approving the governor's bill does pose the threat of transparency that we have given our constituents by giving them this internet option. So my question to legal, I guess, would be, can we adopt the governor's resolution and simultaneously begin to allow few residents just to try out the waters? Because I know we still have to look at the county's mandate for vaccine passports, and that's something that this body has not, digested at this time. So is there a way that we can adopt the government's policy and then start preparing to open up the chambers?
Yes, Mayor, members of the City Council, yeah, the answer is yes. What I would recommend is that you adopt this ordinance tonight because this ordinance is only in effect for 30 days. That'll give us an opportunity to meet with everybody and try to figure out what the plan will be going forward. After the 30-day period, hopefully we'll have a better plan for you and address some of the concerns that you and Councilmember Chavez have raised. And at that point, we can either adopt another resolution that extends it for additional 30 days, or we can adopt it with some of the recommendations that you stated here tonight.
Well, because I do want to see the community in here, but I do believe we should have a plan. And we do have to, again, look over it as how we're going to adopt the policy that the county has put in place about vaccine passports and whatnot.
Yeah,
Um,
if I may, Mayor, members of the council, I wouldn't recommend that we make a decision in haste tonight to figure out how we're going to allow for more public participation. I think there's a lot of factors that we need to consider before we open it up to the public. And I'd like to have that discussion with your city manager. So for tonight, what I would recommend is that you go ahead and approve this. That'll give us 30 days to try to figure out a plan going forward. There's
okay.
some legal issues associated with this, which I'd like to address with your city manager.
Absolutely. Okay.
Mayor, if I may, if it's possible, I don't know exactly the legal terminology that I would have to use to retake my motion.
We,
No,
you can just withdraw your motion,
Okay,
Councilmember.
I'd like to
yeah,
withdraw my
and
motion.
we
Thank you.
already have a motion that has a second, so with the vote, it probably will take care of it on its own. So we're gonna go ahead and take it to a vote now. Councilmember Chavez,
Yes.
thank you. Cortez,
Yes.
thank you. Flores,
Yes.
thank you, and yes for myself. So motion carries to approve option number one. And now we're moving on to item number 15. City Manager, will you please announce the discussion item?
Thanks again, Mayor Barcena. This item was actually requested by you at the last council meeting for staff, in this case, Gus Romo, our Community Development Director, to give an update on the current tenant protections that exist. This is specific to residential, but I think if our director could also talk a little bit about commercial as well, even though there's nothing specifically written in the staff report. And I also just like to make a note, obviously there's state controls in place, but you're on the rent control ad hoc committee, and that committee is obviously moving forward and should have something to the council here in the next few months. But at this point, I'll turn it over to our director, Gus Romo.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. As part of this presentation, I'll also let you know what we have in place going forward. Right now, I'd like to talk about just currently what residents here in the city of Bell Gardens have for protections. As you know, we are a community of 78% renters. So just to give a quick history, Since the pandemic and since the state mandates came on board with business closures, many people lost their jobs. There's businesses that closed, and let me just take this off for a second. And because of that, there are rising concerns that there were going to be more tenants that were going to lose their homes. So with that in mind, the city put together rental assistance program based on CDBG monies that they have obtained from the federal, and then eventually the county had turned that over to us. And the city also took it upon itself through our community services director staff to help the county with their own rental assistance program. And when the county stopped their program, staff went ahead and continued helping out the state. So as you've heard, our Director Roseanne Adanto and her staff have been very successful in bringing in additional revenue for the city to be able to help out the state. We also had the governor come on board over here and give a presentation here in the city of Bell Gardens, thanks to our director and the staff. So we're very happy to be the lead here in the city and in SELA for rental assistance, and we continue to do that. Of course, those monies, will get exhausted. And now that the eviction moratorium has expired as of September 30th, those tenants were asked to make sure that they submitted an application for assistance, either through the city, the county, or the state. That way they would be protected from eviction. However, also landlords have to submit for that application. Otherwise, they won't be able to evict. And our city attorney, Mr. Alex Lemieux, is also here on the screen with us to answer any questions on that. His take is that landlords probably can't evict if they did not seek rental assistance, but that is, again, an uncertainty. It's waiting, for more information to come on board based on what case law will say. But one thing to note is that tenants who did not pay the 25% during the period of September 20th and September 31st, when it was changed by the deadline, and tenants who do not pay rent from October 1st, 2021 on, do have the potential of getting evicted. However, there are also legal assistance programs out there. And one thing the city also ended up going after and getting awarded was funds through the permanent local housing allocation. So the city has received 2 years in a row monies towards that. The first year, it was $376,671 that were awarded to Bell Gardens. And out of that, the council wanted a portion of that to go towards eviction defense. So in year two, we received a total of 586,000. And out of the total, we have $253,342 that have been allocated towards eviction defense. So that's a current protection we have for our tenants here in Bell Gardens. We are working with the Los Angeles County Development Authority to get those funds. So every city right now is waiting for those funds to come in. We've already been awarded the money. And again, we want to let our residents know that that money is available. If you're having issues with eviction and you're worried about that, you're going to be able to call a particular number that we're going to advertise, hopefully in a couple of weeks. We do have a meeting with LACTA next week on the 20th. So we're going to be able to get more information on that. The other thing to note is that because the eviction moratorium was both for tenants, residential tenants and commercial tenants. Right now, we still have the protection for commercial tenants, but that's going to come to an end. I don't know the exact date on that, but I'd like to go ahead and turn it over to our city attorney, Alex Lemieux, to see if there's any other protections that he believes are out there in place. Again, the laws keep changing and we're going to keep updating you. So if you have any further questions, our city attorney, Alex Lemieux, is here to answer that. And the last thing is, as you know, we've been working with the Rent Control Ad Hoc Committee, of which our mayor, Marco Barcena, and our councilwoman, Alejandra Cortez, are a part of. It's a 7-member committee. We've already met approximately 6 times. And this last time that we met internally, we've been directed to go ahead and start the public workshops. So there's going to be at least 2 public workshops that are going to be advertised. We're working with our city attorney's office to get the panelists that had spoken at the internal workshops or the internal meetings to be there as well. So we'll have some representatives to be able to inform the public, uh, both from the landlord side and the tenant side. And we'll also have someone from the development community. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Gustavo Romo. I wanted to forward this question that came into the chat because I think it is important. An anonymous attendee is asking, do we know if these funds are available to undocumented members of our community?
Yes, my understanding is that there won't be anything required in terms of asking for citizenship. It's going to become available on a first come, first served basis. They're going to be focusing specifically on what is occurring, whether there's illegal action taking place on the part of the landlord to evict the tenant.
And this is Alex Lemieux, if I may, Mr. Mayor and council members. I think that's also correct. Um, Anyone who would like to see what information is required to submit the application for the back rent should Google Housing is Key. That is the state website that contains the FAQ and the applications process. And there's quite a lot of documentation that has to be assembled. Unfortunately, it's somewhat complicated, but they do not ask for any information regarding tenants, citizen, or for that matter, landlord citizenship status. So that shouldn't be an issue. And I'd also add, whether you're a landlord or a tenant, it's worthwhile to put in this application, even if you're not getting cooperation on the application from your counterparty.
Sorry about that. There is one thing I had left out, and the report identifies this. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Alex was talking, I think.
Oh, go ahead, Gus.
He said you can go ahead, Gus.
You said you already interrupted him.
Sorry about that, Alex. No, I just quickly wanted to point out that the Tenant Protection Act, you know, right now through the state does offer the rent control. And that's something that is at 5% maximum, plus a maximum of 5% for inflation. In other words, the consumer price index, which currently is at 4%. So there can be a rent increase of more than 9% for anyone in California, including Bell Gardens residents. So I just wanted to make that clear.
Thank you, Gus, and I believe we'll allow Alex to continue with his.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of brief points to fill in some gaps. The county's commercial eviction moratorium, as it currently stands anyways, runs through January 31, 2022. That the county's residential moratorium has expired. So the only moratorium, you know, that would, as has the states, obviously. So eviction moratoria had expired for residential tenancies. And the rules are tenants are supposed to have paid 25% of any rent that was missed between September of 2020 and September 31, 2021, excuse me. In other words, for the past year, by October 1st. And they're required to pay the normal rent going forward. Landlords can still seek that balance of that rent, that 75%, or any of the rent that accrued, you know, before September of 2020 during the COVID period, but they can only pursue it through small claims court or a normal civil lawsuit. They can't use it as a basis for an eviction lawsuit. So that's the critical thing that tenants should understand, is they have to pay at least a quarter of the rent that they missed from September 2020 through September of the year 2020, that is, through September 31st of 2021. And they have to be current on the rent going forward. And for any of the rent that's, you know, missing, they really ought to be putting in an application through the state to have that back rent paid based on the state rental assistance program that's available for landlords and tenants to pay back rent.
Thank you, Alex, for the insight on that. Is that all we have from our staff?
That is all, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for that. I'm going to open it up for comments here with my colleagues. Does anyone have any comments?
I think, Mayor, just as an update to the rest of the council, and I think we've mentioned it before with regards to our event ad hoc, we have been having a couple educational workshops, and we mentioned it earlier where we have been learning about rent control and also the housing problem and how to fix that, or how to help to fix that. But we do want to be able to hear the voice of our community at a larger scale, and that's where we will be having these community workshops. Director, also, if you would mind just adding to your list when we do come up with the dates for these workshops to let Assemblywoman Garcia's office know. I know they requested for us to inform them of the date just so that they're aware for our community workshop. So I hope you can all attend also just to listen on what the community has to say. And if you can just help us also promote through your social media pages, we'll be promoting, through our city pages as well. But that way we have the voice of a wide range of residents so that we can hear their concerns with regards to this issue. That's all.
Thank you, council member. And I do have a comment going along with what Councilmember Cortez asked our staff to help with in regards to the dates that are coming up. I think we are at a turning point here due to the expiration of these moratoriums and a lot of for example, the inflation that's coming in, the CPI index being at around 5%. So I think what we can do as a city is, given that we do have some money there for our community to defend themselves if they are in a tough situation when it comes to evictions, I would like to see a more coordinated effort to promote this opportunity, right? Because this is an opportunity for our community members to defend themselves if they are indeed in trouble. So perhaps a regularly scheduled on social media posts, maybe strategically deploying these posts with specific groups of our community, whether it's Bell Gardens Uncensored, Bell Gardens, the Crime Watch page, or any other forums that could provide that exposure that maybe is the only thing that's keeping some of these residents from getting the help that they need. As another example is today's comments that came in, I saw some numbers on there that seemed a little bit excessive. So excessive that they didn't seem legal even within the current state regulations. So I would like to ask staff if you guys can please reach out to those comments that came in that are obviously alarming before, I think it's an opportunity for us to do our part that's being presented to us here today. So let's go ahead and reach out to those individuals that are, based on their comment, obviously need the help right away. And so, yeah, if we can coordinate something, I think it's within the interest of the council to have these opportunities being promoted on our social media accounts and anywhere possible. But any other comments on this item?
I just wanted to speak to our callers and just thank them for expressing themselves. I know that they expressed their hardships, and I understand. I've spoken to, voy a hablar en español porque sé que la mayoría de ustedes que hoy se emitieron sus comentarios fue en español. Sé que lo que ustedes están sufriendo y viviendo porque yo hablé con ustedes y también las entendí y yo les expresé cuál es mi posición. Am, entonces quiero decirles que ya sé que se están frustrando, pero yo sé que yo no soy en el comité de que es para el control de renta, pero sí estoy apoyándolas a ustedes y queremos darles las herramientas necesarias para que puedan seguir viviendo en paz y que no las estén amenazando y que no las estén estresando, porque hablamos de la ciudad, de que muchos, I don't know how to say landlords, ¿ah? Los dueños de sus apartamentos les causan, ¿verdad? Entonces, sé que estamos escuchándolas y yo le mandé un correo electrónico a una de las directoras de su programa hace como un mes para tratar de hablar y ver qué es lo que estaba pasando, y también me platicaron sobre que necesitaban todos los papeleos y documentos que fueran en español y yo sé que Gustavo les provió todos esos documentos en el lenguaje preferido. Entonces, por favor, no estén por vencidas, aquí estamos para ayudarlos y cuando además del concejal del concilio esté listo para hacer esas votaciones, yo estoy lista. So, eso es todo. Thank you.
Mayor Barcena, if I may.
Please go ahead.
Thank you so much, staff, for presenting this issue to us and telling us about the current tenant protections that are available. Thank you to all the residents that submitted public comment. 15 public comments we received, and all of them in favor of rent control. This issue, this this task is really important to me. Um, as a former member of the Unión de Vecinas, as a working with CLRJ, appreciate all the work that Martha has done, appreciate all the work that Michelle has done, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the rent control ad hoc brings forward to us. I'm looking forward to the workshops as well. Definitely be in attendance. And I feel that rent control is just the beginning to a lot of things that our renters have to go through. And speaking, from behalf of the community that's 80% renters, with 30% of our community close to below poverty, under the poverty line. I think there's a lot of issues within our community. The living conditions, that's something that we haven't even gone to. What does a resident do when there's roach infestation, right? What does a resident do when, there's no plumbing, there's no proper painting? I mean, what are options are available for them? So, living in those conditions, what sort of what resources are available for them, right? Because I feel like tenant protections, I mean, that should include all that as well. Bless you. That should include all that as well. So in terms of that, and I'd like to bring it back to staff with Director Romo and legal Alex. What sort of protections are there when it comes to rat infestations, roach infestation, plumbing, painting, those sort of living conditions for our tenants, you know, and for the fact that maybe they don't have the proper documentation status, they're afraid to speak up in our community, with 30%, close to 30% of our community being undocumented, what sort of resources are available for them? With if they have landowners that potentially have threatened them with speaking up, to potentially calling ICE or something like that on them. So we've heard the cases. So I'm interested in knowing when we talk about residential tenant protections, where's the conversation on that aspect? Because rent control is just one, right? I think living conditions is another. So I'm interested in hearing.
Okay, I think I can answer that. Very excellent question, Councilman. Let me just first address the issue of landlords who threaten tenants based on immigration status. The Immigrant Tenant Protection Act of 2017 is a state law which directly dealt with that. And first, it prohibits a landlord from disclosing or threatening to disclose someone's immigration status in order to coerce the tenant to leave the unit, to harass or intimidate, or even just disrupt the quiet enjoyment of the premises of the tenant, or to retaliate against the tenant for exercising their rights. And that's can be found in the Civil Code, section 1940.2, 1940.3, 1940.35. It is considered retaliatory for a landlord to report or threaten to report immigration status to authorities when a tenant exercises their housing right. It is also an affirmative defense to an eviction, that a tenant can't be evicted based on their immigration status. In eviction cases, there's no civil discovery regarding a tenant's immigration status allowed whatsoever. And there's also a right of action, in other words, a right to sue someone if a landlord willfully, recklessly, or intentionally discloses immigration status to a law enforcement authority. And the tenant's entitled to damages if that happens. So the state has provided very strong protections, at least in terms of immigration status. And actually an attorney who assists a landlord or tries to intimidate a tenant based on immigration status violates their duties to the state bar. You get in trouble at the state bar. So I would definitely just encourage everyone who's in that situation, take a look at those code sections. Now, you brought up a general question. What does a tenant do when there's rat infestations, plumbing problems, painting problems? And that's a general issue with landlords and tenants. Every landlord has a duty to maintain the property at least up to the level of what's required by the code. And earlier there was a very on point discussion of the importance of code enforcement. Um, Tenants, first of all, always have the right to report any issues to code enforcement. Code enforcement will deal with it in their manner and require landlords to get into compliance. And if a landlord retaliates in some way against the tenant, the tenant has a right to sue the landlord for that. In addition to that, depending on the nature of the problem, and you have to be a little, it's kind of fact specific. You know, there's rat problems and then there's rat problems, for example, and same thing with really the whole gamut of tenant problems you can have. Tenant is sometimes entitled to a reduction in their rent. They're sometimes entitled to go and make the necessary repairs themselves and then deduct the cost of those repairs from the rent, which is called the repair and deduct remedy. And that's all found in the civil code. In addition to that, a landlord can't raise the rent if there's ongoing problems, habitability problems on the premises. What I would say to anyone who's in this position, maybe they can't afford a lawyer, they don't have the wherewithal to research the statutes themselves, is to get in touch with somebody from the county legal aid or somebody from the city. I think that's probably the most efficient way to do it. And I think most tenant lawyers will be very knowledgeable about all those issues. And, you know, say is landlord-tenant relationships a give and take thing, and you know, tenants should give landlords a reasonable opportunity to fix problems as they arise. But if things continue and the landlord doesn't take any corrective action, the tenant has a lot of rights available under state law. So that's how I'd respond to that.
Thank you so much for that. If I may make one more point in regards to the COVID monies that are out there for the rent forgiveness or rent cancellation of such from the state. From my understanding is no landowner can evict a tenant if they're not, they'd have to still go through the process of the state, correct?
Councilman, that's my understanding, and that is what is written in the statute. In other words, if you have a tenant who is eligible to receive the subsidy from the state, and the landlord just chooses not to go, you know, and apply for it, or the landlord and tenant to do it, that should be an affirmative defense to the tenant. In any future eviction that should stop the landlord from being able to evict. So in other words, if you're a landlord and you have a tenant who hasn't paid rent during this period of time, you really need to be putting in this application regardless of whether or not you're really sure that the tenant's eligible, because it seems to be an affirmative defense. I say this with a little bit of hesitancy and trepidation because it's really not clear how this is going to play out in practice. The statute says you're supposed to do this, but it doesn't say exactly what the effect is of failing to put in the application. And another caveat is, you know, not all, to qualify for either the subsidy or for any of these protections, the non-payment of rent has to be for a COVID-related reason, such as, you know, loss of work opportunity or something like that. It's a pretty generous definition, but it's not going to cover people who have a very high annual income and have just chosen not to pay the rent. So it's not a blanket protection. There is a means testing to it. But yeah, what I'd say is if you're a landlord or tenant, and you have unpaid rent that could possibly be covered, I think it's really advisable to put in that application. And if you've got a if you're either a landlord or a tenant and the other person is not cooperating to put in the application, what I've been told by officials at the state is you should put in the application anyways, even if it gets rejected. You've at least established a record of attempting to comply that could then be, useful if you end up in an unlawful detain or eviction situation down the road. So if, in other words, if you're a tenant and the tenant, if you're a landlord and the tenant doesn't want to go through the application process, and I know some people are in that position, the landlord still ought to apply in order to hopefully preserve their right to do an eviction for non-payment of rent in the future.
Yeah, yeah. The reason I mentioned that is because today we received public comment where, clearly it states that multiple tenants, applied for the help from the state, the COVID-19 aid money to help pay with the payments of rent due. And instead, the landowner has decided to only take money orders or cash, right? So for those tenants, they did their due diligence in putting in forward this application. Um, in a case where this were to get to litigation or anything of that sort, correct?
I think that's correct, Councilman, and I think that they ought to be able to use that as an affirmative defense if the landlord then turns around sometime in the future and tries to file an eviction based on non-payment of rent during that covered period. And if they do that, my suggestion would be get in touch with one of the county provided free legal aid for tenants. In fact, they should probably be doing that proactively now, just so they're counseled specifically on their rights. And I have to be a little hesitant because every individual landlord and tenant circumstance is going to be a little bit different, and there can always be details of the nature of the tenancy that can change things. So it's very important that if they're in that kind of situation, they should get individualized legal counsel from a tenant attorney sooner the better.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any other remarks?
Yes, I want to open up the floor for our Parks and Recs director. I know she has something to say, and then after that, I want to make a request.
Uh, Thank you. I do want to make a comment in reference to the housing is key. The city of Bell Gardens is providing those services and will assist both landlords and tenants complete the application process. If a tenant, if a landlord refuses to cooperate, the money will be paid directly to the tenant. So either the tenant or the landlord can apply for the funding, and funding is available and it will pay back rent all the way back to April of 2020, which could, I think the cap amount is up to $30,000. Hylas just assisted me in bringing up the website for Housing is Key. To date, over 581 applications have been filed here or accepted in the city of Bell Gardens for a total of funds paid of $1.5 million in rent assistance to residents here in Bell Gardens, and we're still completing applications daily. Now, before any, it's our understanding and the information that we get almost daily from the state is that a tenant cannot be evicted unless the landlord completes the application process for those funds. So they cannot be evicted unless the tenant, the landlord completes the process. And again, staff is at the Community Family Service Center 5 days a week, more than 40 hours a week. We have 5 or 6 staff that are attending to residents daily because we are helping everybody in the county of Los Angeles, in the city of Los Angeles, since they closed down their area. But Bell Gardens residents alone have been approved for is 581 cases, and we've distributed 1.5 million, and I know that we have more money pending. The state's a little bit slow right now in dispersing the amounts, but we stay with the clients all the way through the process until they receive their payment. And we've had a number of clients that have received well over $20,000 in assistance. So definitely, please give us a call and we'll be available to assist the residents, tenants, and landlords for any back rent. Um, so that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Roseanne. I did want to add a request. I do want to see a tenant protection workshop. I know we already had one, but I would like to see another one, maybe if Alex, if you could assist us with that. But at the same time, incorporate our Parks and Rec staff so that they can, use it as somewhat of a commercial to advertise this and also explain what you just explained, Roseanne. I think that'd be very helpful. But I do want it in a virtual setting, not in person, just so that we don't limit the access and we open it up to as many residents as possible. And then if we can also reach out to the Unión de Vecinas to promote it with them so that they could promote it with all the people that did call us today. But a tenant protection, discussing all the wonderful questions that Councilmember Chavez had today, and that Alex very thoroughly answered. And thank you, Alex, for all your knowledge.
Council member, did you
My pleasure.
mention both in person and virtually or just virtually?
Given that we're again going into the winter months, let's go ahead and just proceed with virtual. I think it provides accessibility for our staff and also for our attorneys so that we can combine. And then if we don't have that much of a turnout, then at that point we can reassess and see if we have an in-person one.
City manager, is this something that we can tie into my request to have a plan for the promotion of the services that are out there to protect tenants and have this workshop be sort of a component of it and maybe bring it back to the next council meeting?
Yes, Mayor Barcena. So we'll come back with an action plan, basically, that I think would obviously include the virtual workshop. In the meantime, prior to the workshop occurring, we'll still be putting out social media so we don't miss out any opportunities in the meantime.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. And thank you, council member, for your remark, and Director of Recreation and Community Services, Roseanne, thank you for that excellent information. I'm gonna go ahead and
So before you go, I'd like to go ahead and make a comment on this. Roseanne, for the last couple of months, we've had many residents who have applied for this project. I'm sorry, for these resources from our Parks and Rec. And a lot of them had a concern that the monies were taking a long time to get paid out to their landlords, right? And so I do appreciate the work of all of the caseworkers that are over at Veterans Park that are taking care of this work. There is a resident recently who I have been guiding through it with the whole Housing is Key program, and she was actually served with a eviction notice. But because she had been well trained and she knew everything that was going on, she actually gave them the declaration of COVID-19 related financial distress form, which you can actually pick up. Anybody can get it at Housing is Key, like right there on one of the first tabs available is that to get that form and send it over to your landlord so that you cannot be evicted. And it actually really does help. And the fact that they didn't believe, I guess, that they were actually receiving assistance, and then later to find out that the only problem was is that the landlord was not submitting the information necessary for them to get paid. So, so all of the caseworkers over at Veterans Park, I know for sure that you guys are really helping and are really pushing for those monies to be delivered. So thank you so much. I've been a big advocate for this, and we've been pushing as the Stella region to be able to get to all of our residents because this entire region is composed of renters. So for everybody over at Veterans Park, I genuinely appreciate all of the work that you guys are doing, taking all those phone calls and listening to the hardship stories of the moms and dads that have been deeply affected by COVID and their health has not allowed them to go back to work. And, just many other cases and stories along that, caliber of distress for our residents. So thank you to everyone out there. And Mr. Alex Lemieux?
Close enough.
I didn't interrupt you like Gus did. So, so anywho, thank you so much, Alex, for sharing all of that knowledge with us. We really appreciate you as well. That's all for me.
Very much my pleasure, and thank you very much for the time.
All right, thank you
And
everyone
Mayor,
for your
before you go
comments.
forward, I do have just a point of information for you. Um, with regards to the PLHA money, we are waiting for that to come in. And as Rosanna said, the county does take some time for that, and they are working right now with the state to get those monies in so that we can start advertising that for our residents. So on October 20th, we do have a meeting with them to find out when this money is coming. So until then, we cannot advertise these monies because they're not available just yet. So just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you, Director Romo. Okay, and I believe that concludes comments for this item. I will go ahead and move to receive and file. May I have a second?
Second,
Second.
Cortez.
Second by Cortez, and I'll take it to a roll call. Chavez?
Yes.
Cortez?
Yes.
Flores?
Yes.
And yes for myself, so motion to receive and file passes. And now moving on to public participation for non-agenda items. And I will go ahead and read a comment that came in a little late, but I still have it here in front of me, so I'll go ahead and read it. It says from an anonymous attendee, it says, "Hello, I've been a resident of Bell Gardens for the past 30 years. I grew up here. I recently learned about our community garden. I've reached out as I've seen their spaces that look abandoned. I was told there's a waiting list. And from what I heard, there's been people waiting for a long time. So my question is, why is there a waiting list? If there's space and spaces that look abandoned, I have 3 kids that I love, that I'd love to teach to maintain, grow, and be a part of the community they are also growing up in." Okay, so that is a comment, and I will go ahead and provide. I want to ask my city attorney, can I provide a reply here, or should I wait for our public comment for the council? Should I provide a reply here if I have some a remark to say in regards to this comment that came in, or should I wait for the council to provide their comments later? Okay. Okay, so what I like to say is, I used to work in the Recreation and Community Services Department, and the person in charge of this community garden was right next door to me. So I know for a fact that this list is really huge. That we do have a very, very intense waiting list. However, I am sure that we have guidelines. So if a specific plot of land is not being well kept and it looks abandoned, we can definitely look into this. If you want, go ahead and send me a message or call our Recreation and Community Services Department, tell them that you submitted this comment, and we'll look into it. However, that doesn't mean that you will get that plot. It just means that if for whatever reason we're not addressing plots that are not well kept, then we will definitely do that and kind of move the waiting list along. But that's all that I can promise at this point. Um, and yeah, that the community garden is just it's sort of a hidden secret. However, I guess too many people still know about it because that waiting list is huge. But thank you for your comment, and we'll go and check with the city clerk if there are any other comments.
There are no more written comments at this time. We'll go ahead and open up the line to see if there's anyone wishing to speak. The members of the public will now have an opportunity to speak on items not listed on the city council meeting agenda. Please state your name for the records before addressing your comments to the mayor and council members. Each speaker and email reading is limited to 3 minutes. Email comments will be read out loud after all speakers have been heard. Anyone wishing to make a comment may do so at this time by pressing *9. When instructed, press *6 to unmute yourself. Individuals joining us through the Zoom app may request to make comments by using the raise hand feature on Zoom. Anyone wishing to speak can go ahead and do so now.
Okay. Okay. It looks like we don't have any verbal comments being submitted. So we are going to move to council comments, and we'll start with Councilmember Chavez.
Thank you so much for that, Mayor. Quick question on I want to start off with the community garden. I want to thank staff out there, Public Works, for doing all that work, setting up new benches and tables, and I think a whole new cement block that we did out there in the community garden. I saw that. Really appreciate seeing a lot of work being put into our community garden. And with that, I would ask if potentially a community garden presentation will be brought to us with all the development that's coming to the community garden in the next couple of weeks. I'd be interested in seeing um, sort of the layout, and potentially each of us can maybe go check it out and see what's different and what's new. So I don't know if maybe by next meeting or in the first meeting of November, if we could probably have a presentation, if that'd be okay with the council to see the development that's been happening at our community garden, along with the plots, and see sort of how many plots are available, which ones are not, and for what reasons, and the wait list. That's also another thing. So I'd be interested in seeing.
Council member, I'm gonna just uh, ask Mike if maybe we can get that done, perhaps in the with the aquatics event that we have planned coming up, because we'll be at Fort Park. Maybe we can just walk over to the community garden then.
Yeah, that'd be a good plan.
Just as an idea, right?
Double dip.
Sure. Yes, Mayor Barson. I mean, maybe we can get over there earlier. I think the timing right now would be a 4 p.m. for the event, and then the council meeting starts at 5, but I think we could set something up prior to that. I think we could probably also put some information in the next bi-weekly as well, maybe with a kind of a chart that shows the plot. So we'll get the information to council, and then with the intent of doing some kind of a walkthrough between now and the time that you mentioned, if not on that exact date.
Awesome. Thank you. Please go ahead, council member.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I also want to thank the council for one of the items that we took upon today, which was item number 10. It was about the park restrooms. I didn't make a comment, but I should have. I saw that on the item, it says that we're actually going to use some Prop A funds, some Measure A funds. So that was interesting. I'm glad to see that. I think the county or the grant that we applied for covered about 63% of the fund to be able to do the restrooms, and the rest are going to come through our Measure A funding. So I'm glad to see that we're using Measure A funding for our park, and I look forward to seeing more of that development coming forward. Um, Also, something that I don't think was mentioned, maybe I might have missed it. I think this Thursday we're gonna have a Give Golf a Go clinic on this Thursday at our golf course. It's gonna be from 6 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. So that's gonna be on a Thursday, so it's a school night. But if your parents that are interested, or the guardians, if they're interested in having their kids try a new sport, golf is definitely an option here in the great city of Bell Garden. So from 6 to 8:30 this Thursday. Another maybe question for or point of clarification: do we have a food distribution this Saturday? Awesome. So we're gonna have a food distribution this Saturday at our Veterans Park, 10 to 12. Hopefully, our community that's in need can come out, receive a box of goods, produce, and canned goods. And looking forward to seeing you all out there.
Council member, sorry to interrupt again, but I do have a question. Are we taking volunteers for the food distribution? Yes, okay, I see that we are taking volunteers. So please call the Recreation and Community Services Department if anyone would like to volunteer for the food distribution that's coming up this Saturday. Sorry about that.
It's all right.
Councilmember Chavez, please go ahead,
And
continue.
yeah, now that you mentioned volunteers, I think for the biweekly, I think I saw something along the lines for the Halloween event that we're doing. We actually are going to be recruiting volunteers as well. So that's on a Sunday. Halloween is on a Sunday, and also people can RSVP for to help us on that event by calling the recreation office. So let's see, I had one more item. Oh, I saw that there was a neighborhood cleanup this last weekend. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make it, but I did see the mayor was there, council member Flores was out there, and really appreciate the rest of the community coming out and cleaning up our city. I look forward to hopefully attending the next one, but making sure that our neighborhood is clean is very important to me, and it's important to the council as a whole. And let's continue investing in our community and keeping it clean. Um, and then finally, Happy Indigenous Peoples Day. Um, we had the opportunity to hear the speaker, and we also got to read the proclamation. I don't know if it's a national holiday if it's a city holiday here in the city, but potentially if it's not, I wouldn't mind making that an option or making that official here for the city of Bell Gardens. But It's important. I remember when I was growing up, we considered Columbus Day. We even did a little cutout, like maybe on my elementary school years. And obviously, that's not the case. Columbus did not discover America, did not discover, it's interesting the story of the Italian founder or finder, and it's simply not true, right? So, again, happy Indigenous Peoples Day, and hope everyone has a great night. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilmember Chavez, for your comments. Councilmember Cortez.
Thank you, Mayor. This is for staff. I do want to give direction. I had a resident inquire about the intersection on Gotham and Park Lane. I know there's a crosswalk on one side of the street, but not on the other side. And there's, I believe, we're missing an ADA compliant ramp. So this resident has a hard time accessing the other side by the pool. And I'll show Mike a picture because I'm terrible with directions. Um, but she wants to be able to cross at the intersection or at the side of the intersection closest to her home. She is disabled. So for her to cross over to the other side, there's no crosswalk or the ramp is missing or something of the sort. I think, Roseanne, you know what I'm talking about. So there's a way that we can address that either now or in conjunction with our pool project. But I do want to make sure that that gets in there. So Parkland and Gotham. And other than that, remember it's October, so it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. I am wearing my BGPD Pink Patch Project shirt. I know BGPD is selling patches and other items. Hats, I think, are still available. Cash only, you can come and purchase them at our BGPD lobby, and that's to support breast cancer awareness. And for our community, make sure you get tested and make sure you're on top of your health. Prevention is key for breast cancer awareness, or for breast cancer. Thank you. That is all.
Thank you, Councilmember Cortez. Councilmember Flores.
Yes, Councilmember Cortez made an excellent point about breast cancer awareness. It is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and for that reason, I would like to request that we do a proclamation acknowledging the month of October as Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Um, Also, I'd like to go ahead and touch on the community garden. I spoke to the resident regarding this community garden. It's a very big hit after Grisel came and just, revamped it and gave it some love and some actual water because I know that our residents were using actual buckets to water their plants. It's become a huge hit, and I do want to make it efficient, right? So if there's plots that are abandoned and available, we should give it to families like the one who is in contact here, who would like it, right? Because it only makes sense, right, to be efficient. So I don't know how long this list is or how old it is, and if those same people who were in line then are so interested, but let's see what we can do to get that list moving, and we will be in contact with the resident regarding that community garden. And also, I'd like to talk about today's National Coming Out Day, and today we had our LGBTQ Youth Center pop up. It was a phenomenal event. My colleague Jorge Chavez had the opportunity to welcome everybody into the center and gave a wonderful speech to welcome our other community members into the city of Bell Gardens. We had a visit from Mayor Pro Tem Lisa Middleton, who was actually the Mayor Pro Tem for the city of Palm Springs. And she's actually a product of our community. She grew up here in the city of Bell Gardens, and she shared her story, her path in Bell Gardens. And she came back and she made a very bold statement. She's the first trans woman elected, and she stood before everyone and said, "My name is Lisa Middleton, and I am transgender." And the entire room just like felt like the love, and it really riled everybody up because she talked about how she came back and she finally has the courage to say what she wasn't able to say years ago. And she is she was here a long time ago. She talked about how she used to, I think, had pop cokes or something like that. It was interesting, an interesting story. And now she's running for state senate. So great things do come from Bell Gardens, but it's all about being able to provide those resources and tapping into our youth and giving them the resources that they need to serve, to thrive. And so to have her and to see what a wonderful woman came out of our city and that she's back, letting us know that we're doing a good job and that she's here to support us, it's a big deal. And so everybody that's, you know, today is a very important day because not only are we acknowledging National Criminal Day, but we are letting those know that there's a lot of people that are out, and if you're ready, it's it's not a perfect place, but it's becoming a very safe place, and it's a very difficult time for a lot of people to have to be shunned into their closet and not be able to express who they really are, and they're shamed on whom they love and who they would like to be one day, and it's very very sad. I mean, that's why you see them suicide rates go up, and we have, homeless youth are mostly made up of people from the LGBT community, and that's a statistic that we really don't talk about, but it's the truth. So this is a very important day for our community and for our country. So thank you so much to everybody that had an opportunity to come. Chief Fairfield, thank you so much for being there, and Roseanne, and to everyone that partook in this, because it's very important and it saves lives whether we know it or not. And with that said, I also want to say Happy Indigenous Day. What do they say, that the most dangerous immigrant to come here was Christopher Columbus? They were right. Anyways, with that said, everybody have a lovely evening. Please stay warm. And we are offering testing at our Veterans Park. So if you feel like you've been exposed or are having symptoms, the services are absolutely free, and they're no questions asked, just an email where we can send you your results. And have a good evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilmember, for your comments. I just want to thank staff. I want to thank the council for a good meeting today. And everyone take care. You guys have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you at the next meeting. Good night. Meeting adjourned.